Life changes when you stop fighting the mirror. There is a silent moment that almost no one notices. It does not happen when you achieve something, nor when you receive good news, nor when you finally attain what you have been wanting. It happens long before that. It happens within you. And precisely because it is invisible, most people spend their entire lives without realizing where they truly lost control of their own reality. Perhaps you know someone who works hard, reads personal development books, watches manifestation videos, practices affirmations every day, and sincerely believes they are doing everything right. Yet nothing seems to change. Money continues to come with difficulty. Relationships keep repeating the same patterns. Opportunities always seem to appear for other people. Then a painful question arises. Why does it seem to work for so many people, except me? Neville Goddard taught something that completely challenges the way most of us were raised to think. According to him, reality never begins on the outside. It begins in consciousness. This means that your life is not being shaped by events themselves. It is being shaped by the identity that observes those events. Think about that for a moment. Two people can experience exactly the same situation. One interprets it as a temporary obstacle. The other sees it as confirmation that they will never succeed. The fact is the same, but the consciousness is different. And that difference changes absolutely everything. Perhaps, for the first time, you will discover that you were never far from the life you desire. You simply kept looking at it through the wrong identity. The biggest mistake isn't in your thoughts. It's in the place they come from. Imagine someone who, every morning, affirms, "I am prosperous." But a few minutes later, when they open their banking app, they feel a tightness in their chest. Not because their balance defines who they are, but because, in that moment, they return to the old character who learned to associate security with the amount of money displayed on a screen. Notice what happened. The words said one thing. The silent feeling said another. And Neville insisted on a principle that is often misunderstood. It is not the repetition of words that creates a new reality, but remaining in a new state of consciousness. That is why two people can repeat the exact same affirmation for months and obtain completely different results. One speaks while trying to convince themselves. The other speaks because it already feels natural within them. These are completely different experiences. The first is still trying to reach a place. The second has already begun living there internally. Perhaps you have never noticed this before. When someone compliments your work, what is your first reaction? Do you simply say thank you? Or do you immediately think, they're just being polite? When an unexpected opportunity appears, do you feel excited? Or do you start imagining everything that could go wrong? When someone shows genuine interest in you, can you receive that affection naturally? Or do you already expect, somewhere deep in your heart, that they will leave sooner or later? These responses may seem small, but they reveal something much greater. They reveal which identity is directing your life. Because no one reacts to the present moment itself. People react to the internal state they were already carrying before the present moment arrived. That is exactly why some people keep repeating the same cycles. They change cities. They change jobs. They change relationships. They change routines. Yet they continue encountering the same emotions, the same fears, the same frustrations, not because fate is against them, but because their consciousness remains in the same place. The mind often prefers a familiar pain to an unfamiliar future. It clings to the stories it has repeated for years. I've always struggled. I've never been appreciated. Good things take a long time to happen to me. At first, these statements describe experiences. After a while, they begin to describe an identity. And when an experience becomes an identity, it stops being merely a memory. It becomes an address. You begin living emotionally inside it. Without realizing it, you wake up every day in the same internal place, expecting the world to offer a different reality. But a mirror does not create a new image before the person standing in front of it changes. This is the point Neville Goddard tried to demonstrate throughout all of his work. Consciousness always comes first. The world simply follows. Perhaps you are still trying to change events, when in reality the change begins much earlier. The moment you decide to stop consulting the old version of yourself to discover who you truly are. And that decision, although invisible to the eyes, has the power to alter the entire direction of your life. The more you chase, the more you confirm you haven't arrived yet. There is a trap so subtle that almost no one notices it when they begin studying Neville Goddard's teachings. It is a trap disguised as effort, as discipline, as dedication. A person believes they are moving toward what they desire. Yet, without realizing it, they continue reinforcing the very reality they want to leave behind. How does this happen? Every time you tell yourself, I need to manifest this. I need to make this happen. I need to attract this opportunity. There is a hidden question behind those statements. And that question is, who is the person who needs this so badly? Someone who is already living this reality? Or someone who believes they are separated from it? Neville never told you to desire less. He taught something far deeper. He said that desire is an invitation, a sign that there is a state of consciousness available for you to occupy. In other words, if a desire was born within you, it is because there is a version of you capable of living it. Otherwise, that desire would never make sense to your consciousness. Think about a child. A 2-year-old does not dream of piloting an airplane because that experience is not yet part of the world they can conceive. But an adult can imagine that possibility in vivid detail. Why? Because their consciousness has already reached that level of understanding. In the same way, when you desire peace, prosperity, a healthy relationship, or freedom, perhaps it is not merely a distant dream. Perhaps it is a calling. A silent invitation to leave behind an old identity and step into an entirely different one. The problem is that most people respond to this invitation in the wrong way. Instead of asking, "Who do I need to become?" they ask, "What do I need to do?" And there is an enormous difference between those two questions. Those who ask only, "What should I do?" continue believing that transformation depends exclusively on circumstances. Those who ask, "Who do I need to become?" begin to realize that every external change is born from an internal one. Imagine an actor. Before stepping onto the stage, they do not merely memorize lines. They enter the character. They change their posture, the way they walk, the rhythm of their voice, their expressions, even the way they breathe. For a few hours, they stop acting like themselves and fully inhabit another identity. And that is precisely why the performance feels convincing. Now imagine if that actor tried to play a king while continuing to behave like a servant throughout the entire play. No audience would believe it. The energy would be completely misaligned. This is exactly what happens to many people. They want to live as someone who is confident, yet they continue making decisions like someone controlled by fear. They desire abundance, but every choice is made from a feeling of scarcity. They desire love, but remain emotionally prepared to be abandoned. Notice that there is no inconsistency in the universe. There is absolute consistency. The world responds to the character you are continuously embodying, not to the character you visit for 5 minutes during meditation. This may be one of Neville's most transformative ideas. The dominant state wins. It does not matter how intensely you visualize for a few minutes before sleep if you spend the rest of the day feeding an opposite identity. It is like lighting a candle and then repeatedly blowing it out. The flame never remains long enough to illuminate the room. That is why the real practice does not happen only during moments of silence. It happens when life tests what you have chosen to assume. When unexpected news arrives. When a plan is delayed. When someone says, no. When fear tries to regain control. It is in those moments that the old identity usually knocks on the door. It arrives with convincing arguments. Remember what happened last time? You've tried before. Don't get your hopes up. It's better not to believe too much. These voices seem like your own, but perhaps they are merely echoes of a version of you that spent too long trying to survive. And here is something liberating. You do not need to fight that voice. You do not need to convince it. You do not need to argue with it. You simply need to recognize that it belongs to a state you have chosen to leave behind. Neville taught that whatever you persist in emotionally eventually becomes natural. And when something becomes natural, you stop forcing it. No one struggles to believe their own name. You simply know who you are. In the same way, there comes a moment when prosperity, love, peace, and confidence stop feeling like distant goals. They begin to feel like natural qualities of the person you have chosen to be. And that is exactly where true transformation begins. Not when the world changes, but when you stop waiting for the world's permission to live as this new version of yourself. Because the moment that happens, something profoundly quiet begins to reorganize within you. And sooner or later, external reality finds a way to reflect that change. Imagination is not meant to help you escape life. It is meant to create a new identity. There is one word that Neville Goddard repeated for decades, and that may be one of the most misunderstood concepts in his entire philosophy. Imagination. For many people, imagining means daydreaming, creating a fantasy, closing their eyes for a few minutes and building a pleasant scene to relieve anxiety. But Neville never spoke about imagination in that way. For him, imagining meant internally experiencing a reality until it felt familiar. Notice the difference. A fantasy is something you visit. An assumed state is a place where you begin to live. That distinction completely changes the way you use your mind. Imagine someone who wants to start their own business. Every day they think, that would be wonderful. Maybe someday, if everything goes well. They imagine that life as if they were looking at a house across the street. They admire it, they desire it, but they remain convinced that the house belongs to someone else. Now imagine a second person. They also have not yet started their company. They also face challenges. They also have bills to pay. The difference is that when they think about the future, they do not observe that reality from a distance. They step into it. They feel the satisfaction of finishing a productive workday. They visualize grateful clients. They sense the confidence with which they make decisions. They feel the quiet pride of building something of their own. They are not escaping reality. They are training their consciousness to recognize a new identity. And that completely changes the quality of their imagination. Because the mind does not clearly distinguish between what is intensely experienced within and what is experienced externally. That is precisely why an old memory can still move you emotionally today. The event ended years ago. Yet simply recalling it vividly can cause your body to respond again. Your heart begins to race. Your breathing changes. Your emotions return. Now consider the other side of that same ability. If a memory can produce real emotions, then an imagined experience felt deeply enough can also transform your inner state. And that was exactly the point Neville sought to teach. Imagination does not exist to entertain the mind. It exists to educate consciousness. Every time you emotionally enter a scene where you are already living what you desire, you are giving your inner system a new reference point for who you are. This does not mean pretending your problems have disappeared. It means refusing to grant them the authority to define your identity. There is a tremendous difference between acknowledging a difficulty and turning that difficulty into a personal definition. One person may say, I am going through financial difficulties. Another says, I am a failure. Do you see the difference? The first describes a phase. The second describes who they believe they are. And life responds very differently to each of them. Perhaps this is one of the quietest habits of the human mind. Confusing temporary circumstances with permanent identity. A relationship ends. So the person concludes they will never be loved. A project fails. They decide they were born to lose. They experience a few rejections. They begin to believe they have no value. Little by little, isolated events stop being merely events. They become definitions. And those definitions begin directing their entire perception of reality. That is exactly where imagination becomes a tool for reconstruction. It allows you to stop constantly consulting the same emotional records from the past. For years, perhaps without realizing it, your mind may have replayed the same movie. The same memories. The same disappointments. The same fears. The same unanswered questions. It is like watching the same film thousands of times until you forget that other stories are possible. Neville proposes something radically different. He invites you to write a new script, not to convince the world, but to convince your own consciousness that it no longer needs to remain trapped in the previous chapter. Because an identity does not change merely by receiving new information. It changes when it repeatedly experiences new feelings. That is why intellectually understanding these teachings is not enough. You can read every book Neville ever wrote, watch hundreds of lectures, learn every concept by heart, and still continue living exactly as before. Because knowledge transforms the mind. But emotional experience transforms identity. And perhaps that is why so many people remain stuck. They collect information, when what they truly need to collect are states of consciousness. The longer you remain internally connected to the version of yourself you wish to become, the more natural that version begins to feel. And eventually, something interesting happens. You stop imagining in order to create a reality. You begin imagining because that reality already feels like it belongs to you. At that moment, something profound starts to occur. You speak differently. You walk differently. You make decisions differently. You respond to challenges in a new way. Without realizing it, the old character begins to lose its place. Not because it was defeated, but because it is no longer being fed. And when that happens, the outer world begins a quiet process of reorganization. Opportunities seem to appear more often. Conversations begin to change. Coincidences increase. People respond to you differently. Not because the universe suddenly decided to favor you, but because there is finally coherence between who you feel yourself to be and what you are ready to experience. Reality begins to change when your I am changes. There is an expression that Neville Goddard considered the center of all transformation. 2 words. Simple. Short. Yet capable of defining an entire existence. I am. Perhaps you have never stopped to realize the weight of those words. Because everything that comes after them functions as a silent instruction to your consciousness. I am unlucky. I am anxious. I am difficult to love. I am someone who always has to struggle. These phrases may seem like simple descriptions, but they are not. They are declarations of identity. And consciousness accepts what you repeatedly say about yourself far more than what you merely wish for. That is why so many people say they want prosperity, yet spend the entire day defining themselves as someone who lives in scarcity. They desire love, yet they continue telling themselves that they are never a priority. They want peace, yet they present themselves to the world as people who are constantly fighting battles. Notice the contradiction. The desire points in one direction. The identity continues walking in another. And when that happens, reality simply follows who you believe yourself to be. Imagine a conductor standing before an orchestra. The musicians do not play what they desire. They follow the conductor's movements. Your identity works in exactly the same way. Your thoughts, your emotions, your choices, your habits, even the opportunities you notice. Everything begins to follow the direction of the I am that governs your consciousness. If the conductor believes everything will be difficult, your perception will begin selecting evidence of that difficulty. You will find obstacles where possibilities once existed. You will interpret delays as failures. You will confuse challenges with rejection. Not because the world changed, but because your focus changed. And whatever receives attention grows. Perhaps you have already experienced this without realizing it. You buy a car of a certain color. Suddenly, you begin seeing that same model everywhere. The cars were always there. What changed was your perception. Now imagine that same mechanism operating for years. If you deeply believe that you do not deserve happiness, your mind will find hundreds of small confirmations to support that belief. If you believe that life is working in your favor, you will begin noticing paths that previously went unseen. This is exactly what Neville meant when he said that consciousness selects the reality that will be experienced. It functions like a filter. It does not only create what it sees, it also decides what it no longer sees. There is a story that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine two people walking through the same city. One of them is convinced that the world is a hostile place. The other believes that opportunities are hidden everywhere. The streets are the same. The people are the same. The weather is the same. Yet at the end of the day, each will tell a completely different story. One will speak only of the problems they encountered. The other will remember the kindnesses, the open doors, and the unexpected coincidences. Who was right? Perhaps both of them. Because each found exactly what their consciousness expected to find. This principle does not merely explain reality. It offers an extraordinary possibility. If consciousness can learn, it can also relearn. That means no I am has to remain forever. You were not born believing you were incapable. You learned that. You were not born believing that you had to suffer in order to be accepted. You learned that. You were not born believing that love always ends. You learned that. And whatever was learned can also be replaced. But here is a detail that completely transforms the process. You do not replace an identity by fighting it. You replace it by offering consciousness a new experience. It is like learning a new language. At first, everything feels strange. The words do not come naturally. You must remember, practice, repeat. For a while, the old language continues to appear. But eventually, the new language begins to emerge spontaneously. Without effort, without translation, without thinking. The exact same thing happens with identity. At first, saying to yourself, I am a confident person, may feel artificial, not because it is false, but because your mind has spent decades speaking a different language. Be patient. Every new identity feels unfamiliar before it becomes familiar. And that is exactly where many people give up. They mistake unfamiliarity for falsehood. When in reality, that unfamiliar feeling is simply a sign that they are leaving old territory behind. Think about learning to drive. At first, every movement requires attention. After some time, everything happens naturally. You talk while driving, listen to music, arrive at your destination without remembering every detail of the journey. The new skill stops being an effort. It becomes part of who you are. Neville believed this was the true purpose of spiritual practice. Not to create temporary moments of inspiration, but to build a consciousness so stable that the new state no longer feels like an exercise, until you no longer need to repeat, I am worthy, because you simply live as someone who is worthy. You no longer need to affirm, I am abundant, because your decisions naturally arise from that inner abundance. You no longer need to convince anyone, or convince yourself. You simply are. And when that moment arrives, External reality begins to feel less like a struggle and more like a natural continuation of what has already happened within you. Because every great transformation begins in exactly this way. Not with a change in the world, but with a quiet phrase that comes to define who you believe yourself to be. The exercise that doesn't just change your thoughts. It changes the person who is thinking them. There is a question that can reveal, in just a few seconds, the state of consciousness from which you are living. It is not a question to answer quickly. It is a question to feel. Whenever a problem, a worry, or a strong desire arises, ask yourself, who is looking at this situation right now? It seems like a simple question, but it can interrupt years of automatic programming. Because most of the time, you are not looking at life from the present moment. You are looking through an identity built from past experiences. Imagine that you receive an unexpected phone call. Before you even answer, your mind begins creating possibilities. This must be bad news. Something happened. Another problem. Now imagine someone else receiving that exact same call. They think, this could be an opportunity. Maybe it's something good. Let's find out. The phone is the same. The ringtone is the same. The only difference is the consciousness interpreting the event. And that is exactly where the exercise begins. Over the next few days, do not try to control every thought you have. That would be impossible. Instead, begin observing who is doing the thinking. Whenever you notice fear, scarcity, or insecurity arising, do not respond immediately. Pause for a few seconds. Take a deep breath and ask, does this reaction belong to the person I am becoming, or to the person I have been for so many years? That small pause completely changes the experience, because you stop reacting automatically. You begin choosing consciously. Neville said that assuming a state means remaining in it. But how can you remain in something new when life keeps presenting old situations? The answer may be simpler than it seems. You do not need to change every circumstance. You need to change the way you speak to yourself while moving through those circumstances. Imagine that you are walking down a road. For years you have always chosen the same path. Now you have decided to take a different one. During the first few days, it will be natural to feel the urge to go back. The old road feels more comfortable, more familiar, safer. The same thing happens with consciousness. The old thoughts will continue to appear. And that does not mean you are failing. It simply means that your mind still remembers the previous route. The mistake is believing that every thought must be followed. It does not. You can observe it, acknowledge it, and let it pass without joining the conversation. Think of someone sitting on a porch watching cars drive by. Not every car needs to be stopped. Not every driver needs your attention. Thoughts work the same way. They pass by, but only some receive your energy, and those are the ones that remain. Now I would like to offer you an exercise inspired by the essence of Neville's teachings, adapted for everyday life. At the end of each day before going to sleep, set aside just 5 minutes. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Then ask yourself one simple question. How would I have lived this day if I were already the person I want to become? Do not try to change what happened. Simply revisit a few important moments. Perhaps a conversation. Perhaps a decision. Perhaps a moment when fear appeared. Now imagine those same scenes happening again. But this time, see yourself responding as the new version of you. With calmness, with confidence, with serenity. Not to erase the past, but to teach your consciousness a new possibility. Little by little, your brain will stop seeing this new attitude as something strange. It will begin to feel familiar, natural. That is how an identity changes. Not in one extraordinary moment, but through hundreds of small silent choices. There is another habit that can accelerate this process. When you wake up, before touching your phone, before checking messages, before diving into the worries of the day, remain in silence for a few minutes. Ask yourself, who do I choose to be today? Do not ask, what is going to happen today? That question gives power to circumstances. Instead ask, which version of myself is going to move through this day? Because perhaps the day is not what determines who you will be. Perhaps who you choose to be determines how that day will be experienced. As the weeks pass, you will begin noticing small changes, not necessarily dramatic events. First, your responses will change, then your posture, then the way you interpret challenges, then your decisions. And only after that will the world begin responding differently. This is a detail that many people overlook. External signs usually appear after the transformation has already occurred internally. That is why so many people believe that nothing is changing. But if you observe carefully, you will realize that the true evidence is not found in circumstances. It is found in the person you are becoming. The life you are seeking is not in front of you. It is waiting for you to inhabit it. If there is one idea that can summarize everything we have discussed so far, it is this. You are not trying to create a new life. You are learning to live as a new version of yourself. Sounds like the same thing, but it is not. For a long time, perhaps you believed that you needed to convince the universe, convince God, convince life, convince circumstances, as if all of them were watching you, waiting for you to finally do everything the right way before deciding to reward you. But Neville Goddard saw it differently. He taught that creation is already complete. That means all possibilities already exist. The question was never about creating a new possibility. The question has always been, which one do you choose to inhabit? Imagine a radio. At this very moment, hundreds of stations are broadcasting simultaneously. You do not create the music when you turn the dial. The music is already being transmitted. You simply change the frequency you are receiving. Perhaps consciousness works in a similar way. There is a state where insecurity feels natural, and another where confidence feels natural. There is a state where everything seems scarce, and another where abundance no longer requires effort. There is a state where love feels distant, and another where being loved is simply part of your identity. The work has never been to manufacture these versions. The work is to learn how to remain in the one that corresponds to the life you wish to experience. That is why Neville spoke so often about remaining. Because anyone can feel hopeful for a few minutes. Anyone can feel inspired after watching a video. The real challenge begins when daily life returns. When the alarm clock rings. When the bills arrive. When criticism appears. When a plan is delayed. It is in those moments that the old identity makes its final attempt to regain control. It whispers, "See? Nothing has changed. You were just excited. It was too good to be true." If this happens to you, do not be alarmed. It does not mean you have returned to the starting point. It simply means your old way of thinking is still trying to survive. And every true transformation passes through this stage. Think about a tree during winter. Someone looking quickly might believe it is dead. The branches are bare. The leaves are gone. There is no visible sign of growth. Yet beneath the surface, life continues working in silence. The roots remain alive, preparing for a new season. The same thing happens with consciousness. There will be days when you feel deep peace, and there will be days when everything seems exactly the same. Neither of those days determines your destiny. What determines your transformation is the direction to which you continually return. Because identity is not emotion. Identity is persistence. You do not become a confident person because you never feel fear again. You become confident when fear no longer makes your decisions. You do not become prosperous because you never face financial challenges again. You become prosperous when you stop interpreting every challenge as proof of scarcity. You do not become loved because everyone suddenly approves of you. You become loved when you stop measuring your worth by the reactions of others. Notice how everything changes. Reality stops being a prison. It becomes a reflection. And reflections are never fought. They are transformed when the original image changes. Perhaps this is the greatest freedom Neville tried to convey. You may not control everything that happens around you, but you can always choose the state of consciousness from which you respond to what happens. And that choice, repeated day after day, eventually rebuilds your entire life experience. Perhaps you will finish this video expecting a great revelation, a secret technique, a magical phrase. But the truth is that the greatest transformation is often born from an incredibly quiet decision. The decision to stop consulting the person you used to be in order to discover who you can become. Today, you can continue feeding the same story. You can continue saying, "I've always been this way. My life has always been difficult. Things never work out for me." Or you can do something different. You can thank the old version of yourself for everything it did to keep you standing until now. And, with respect, tell it that its mission has already been fulfilled. Because surviving is no longer enough. Now it is time to live. It is time to allow a new consciousness to occupy the space where only old fears once lived. And perhaps, sometime in the future, you will look back and be unable to identify the exact day when everything began to change. There will be no marked date, no dramatic moment. You will simply realize that you respond differently, that you feel differently, that you see differently. And almost without noticing, you will discover that life around you has also begun responding in a new way. Not because the world changed first, but because you finally stopped waiting for reality to tell you who you are, and chose to discover that within yourself. This has always been the heart of Neville Goddard's teachings. Reality is not born before your eyes. It is born within the consciousness you choose to inhabit. And perhaps the most important decision of your life begins right now. Not tomorrow. Not when the perfect conditions appear. Not when all doubts disappear. But in this moment. The moment when you silently choose to stop living as the person who merely waits, and begin living as the person who already knows, in the deepest part of their being, that what they are seeking is also seeking them. Because every true transformation begins exactly where no one can see it, within consciousness, and it is from there that an entirely new life begins to emerge. Daily exercise, inhabit your new identity. Now I want to extend an invitation, not just for you to listen to this video, but to experience what you have just learned. For the next 21 days, set aside a few minutes for this exercise. It doesn't matter whether you do it in the morning or before bed. What matters is that it is a moment when you can be alone in silence without interruptions. Begin by taking a deep breath. Inhale slowly through your nose. Hold your breath for a few seconds. Then exhale gently. Do this 3 times. Allow your body to relax. Now close your eyes. For a moment, forget your problems. Forget the bills. Forget the worries. Forget everything that has tried to define who you are until now. Because for the next few minutes, you will not be the person who came to this video. You will be the person you have decided to become. Now ask yourself one simple question. If my life were already exactly as I desire, who would I be in this moment? Do not think only about what you would have. Think about who you would be. How would you breathe? How would you walk? How would you speak to people? How would you face challenges? How would you look at yourself in the mirror? Observe this version of yourself. It does not need to be perfect. It simply lives with a quiet certainty. It knows who it is. Now imagine an extremely simple scene. Do not imagine the process. Imagine only a small moment that would naturally occur if your reality had already transformed. Perhaps someone congratulating you. Perhaps you smiling at the end of a productive day. Perhaps looking at your bank account with peace of mind. Perhaps walking hand in hand with someone you love. Perhaps simply waking up feeling at peace. Remain in that scene for a few moments. Do not try to force emotions. Simply allow the experience to feel familiar. Feel the calm, the lightness, the quiet gratitude of someone who no longer needs to prove anything. Now repeat silently and slowly. I'm not waiting for a new life. I'm learning to live as a new person. Again. I'm not waiting for a new life. I'm learning to live as a new person. One more time. My consciousness chooses a new path. My identity changes first. My reality follows that change. Take a deep breath. And before opening your eyes, make a commitment to yourself. Today, whenever you face a challenge, ask only, how would the new version of me respond to this situation? Do not try to be perfect. Simply choose to respond a little more like this new identity. One decision at a time. One conversation at a time. One thought at a time. Because great transformations do not happen in a single day. They happen when small choices are repeated until they become natural. Open your eyes. Carry this awareness with you. And allow your life to gradually reflect the person you have chosen to be. 21-day challenge. If you have decided to do this exercise, I want to propose a commitment. For the next 21 days before going to sleep, write down the answers to these 3 questions in a notebook. At what moment today did I act as my new identity? In what situation did the old version of me try to take control? What can I do tomorrow to remain even more aligned with the person I have chosen to be? This habit takes only 5 minutes, yet it creates something powerful. It trains your mind to recognize progress instead of constantly searching for external results. And when you begin noticing who you are becoming, you stop depending on circumstances to believe in change. That is the essence of this message. Transformation begins in consciousness and, through consistency, gradually becomes reflected in everyday life. Before we finish, I want to make a very special request. If this message found you at the right moment, don't let it end here. There is a big difference between watching a video and making a decision that has the power to transform your life. If today you choose to leave behind your old identity and begin living as the person you truly want to be, make this moment a milestone in your journey. Write in the comments, "Today I choose a new consciousness." This phrase is not just a comment. It is a declaration, a commitment to the person you have decided to become. I make it a point to read the comments, and I will be truly happy to see how many people are embracing this decision. If this content brought you clarity, inspiration, or awakened something within you, click the like button. That simple action helps YouTube bring this message to thousands of people who may need to hear this teaching today. If you are not yet part of this community, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every week you will find in-depth content about Neville Goddard's teachings, the law of assumption, consciousness, inner transformation, and the power of imagination to create a new reality. and share this video with someone you love. Sometimes, a single message can be the beginning of a change that transforms an entire life. Always remember, you were not born to repeat the same story. You were born to write a new one. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, choose every day to inhabit the consciousness of the person you know you can become. Your new reality begins with that decision.